कॉलेज गोइंग स्टूडेंट्स के लिए क्या सजेशंस आपके?
I used to hustle in college. Hustle करो यार. Please किसी के लिए काम मत करना. I wish I was 20 today. I would have never worked for anybody else in my life. I am a complete fan of startups. Please, please, please do not sell your dreams away for a monthly salary. If you're going to college and you want to know what to do, I would set up my own startup. I would struggle. I would hustle. It takes time, but eventually the returns are fantastic. India is waiting for a million more startups.
थैंक यू एवरीवन फॉर ट्यूनिंग इन इनटू येट अनदर एपिसोड ऑफ गोवेंचर। मैं प्रीतेश कुमार, आपका होस्ट एंड को-फाउंडर फंक्शन ऑफ। मैंने स्टार्टअप्स बनाए भी हैं, बंद भी किए हैं। हेंस ऑन गोवेंचर पॉडकास्ट वी सर्व एज अ फ्रेंडली रिमाइंडर उन सभी चीजों पे जो आपको ग्रो करने में और अपनी ड्रीम्स को अचीव करने में मदद करते हैं। हमारे ग्रुप को ज्वाइन करो डिस्क्रिप्शन में टू शेयर स्टफ एंड स्टार्टअप नेटवर्किंग विद लाइक माइंडेड फोक्स। आज के एपिसोड ना, ये सेकंड पार्ट है हमारे डिस्कशन का वरुण श्रीधर के साथ। सीईओ है पेटीएम मनी के। लास्ट एक साल में ना, अगर हम बात करें तो बहुत सारे स्टार्टअप्स ने आईपीओ करने की कोशिश की है, या और उनमें फेल भी हुए हैं, कुछ कर भी पाए, कुछ फेल भी हुए हैं। जोमैटो, पेटीएम, मामा अर्थ, बहुत सारे एग्जांपल्स हैं। तो कुछ लोगों को पुल बैक भी करना पड़ा। तो शुड इंडियन स्टार्टअप्स इवन सीक आईपीओ एग्जिट? ये ऑप्शन है भी या नहीं? क्या गलत हो गया स्टार्टअप आईपीओ में इंडिया के? ये सब डिस्कस करने के लिए आज हम बैठ रहे हैं विद सीईओ ऑफ पेटीएम मनी। एंड यस, वी आल्सो डिस्कस फाइनेंशियल प्लानिंग एंड प्लानिंग फॉर हैप्पीनेस। But before we begin, I want to thank all of our listeners for all the love, messages, and comments on the podcast and our Instagram channel. Now let's get straight into the episode. Now that we are also changing from India to Bharat, it's वहाँ पे भी एक vernacular approach आ रहा है गवर्नमेंट का. But I think what you mentioned ना अभी वरुण is कि again मतलब just highlighting that again, probably last 3 सालों में ही ना डीमैट अकाउंट्स ही शायद I think 4 से 5 गुना बढ़ गए, right? In fact, I think last I checked the stats, July saw highest growth in demat accounts in many years, right? 12 crore demat accounts हैं अब, right? So what happened? What do you think happened कि लोग FD छोड़ के mutual funds and stocks की तरफ there was a sudden run?
So look, I don't think there was a run. I think what I feel is I admire. It's the same question as saying why did people move to QR code, mobile payments, UPI? Why did people start using Aadhaar? Why are people using Digi Yatra? Why are people booking Uber and Zomato? I think when you give something to people that they see value in, all of a sudden, everybody moves to it. So let me give you an example. I was talking to, I was in a college yesterday in Jaipur, right? And I was speaking, and when this one student asked me, saying, "Sir, when should I start investing?" So obviously, very, very smart kid and understood everything in life. When he asked me that question, he prepared for it, right? And the answer I gave was, I said, "Hey, buddy, I think you know a lot more. Tell me, where have you invested already?" So he said, "Sir, look, my father refused to open me a demat account. Now I'm 18, so I'm going to open. And my money is put in fixed deposits. I know that every time I get interest on fixed deposits, I'm actually behind inflation post taxes. And ये एक देखो 18 साल का लड़का जिसका 2 दिन हुआ है बर्थडे, वो बोल रहा है मेरे से, ठीक है? और उसके साथ उसके 50 बच्चे खड़े हैं, एंड इज ऑब्वियसली स्कोरिंग पॉइंट्स, राइट? कि पेटीएम मनी के सीईओ को मैंने देखो सिखाया आज, ठीक है? तो बड़ा अच्छा एक सिचुएशन चल रहा है. There's a dynamic happening, but I love the dynamic. I played along. He said, "Sir, देखो, अगर मैं एफडी में पैसे डाल रहा हूँ और मेरे पापा डालते हैं एक रिकरिंग डिपॉजिट में, पोस्ट टैक्सेस आई एम लूजिंग मनी. मेरा तो पैसा उल्टा जा रहा है. मैं तो अपने पापा को कहता हूँ, पापा क्या कर रहे हो आप? And then he says, my father puts money in savings account, which is even worse. Then when he cribbed to his father, he said his father got him a LIC policy. ठीक है, लाइफ इंश्योरेंस की कोई पॉलिसी दिला दी और बोला बेटा ये तुम्हारे लिए सही है, तुम इसी में इन्वेस्ट करो. एंड ही सेड, लुक, आई टोल्ड माय फादर, आपकी स्टेटमेंट पढ़ी, इसमें तो 30% है एक्सपेंस रेशियो कमीशंस. इस तरह अगर यही मुझे करना है तो मैं म्यूचुअल फंड में डालूंगा, 1 से 2% कटेगा, right? And I was impressed with an 18-year 2 days. He's 18 years and 2 days, okay? And I think that's the new India. I have a lot of faith in new India. These people have access to information, they're researching, they're smart kids. So eventually, if you tell somebody, you put 100 rupees here, in 2 years at 5% interest, your bank is running you over, the guy wants to work harder, right? And he wants his money to maybe at least make him, like this guy asked him, I said, yaar, tera target kitna hai? Because this guy had worked out all his maths, right? Pakka, he knew everything. Some nice Jaipuri family guy. He was not rich. That's the good part of it. He's not a rich guy. He's a very, very, very normal kid who was talking to me about some 2,000 rupees. So what I really, really enjoyed was I asked him, what's your target, right? What do you think is good for you? He said, sir, देखो 12 से 15% बन जाए तो मैं तो बहुत खुश हूँ क्योंकि मैं इन्फ्लेशन बीट कर लूंगा. आई लव दैट आंसर बिकॉज आई थिंक कहीं पे उसमें ना इज डन ऑल द हार्ड वर्क. एंड लुक प्रीतेश, आई थिंक लॉट ऑफ पीपल से बहुत सारे डीमैट अकाउंट खुल रहे हैं. ये यंग लोग ग्रीडी हैं. आई थिंक द यंग ऑफ इंडिया. I am 43. I would love to be called young of India. I'm not, right? But I can assure you, I think the 16 to 25 of India, India's future is in those hands and it is in perfect hands. Because people like me have worked for the last 20 years to make the infrastructure. The government is doing a great job. SEBI is doing an outstanding job. Their parents are doing a great job getting them educated, sending them to the right places, giving them the opportunity to do all this. I think it's all coming together. तो अगर कोई मुझसे बोलता है ना कि यंग लोग ग्रीडी हैं, मैं बोलता हूँ बॉस आपसे ज़्यादा मैच कर सकते हैं. आप तो सेविंग्स अकाउंट में 20 साल से पैसे लगा के बैठे हो. आपने क्या कर लिया? आपने इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसी में इन्वेस्ट किया ना. सो don't run behind those young people because it's not greed. It is the urgency to work harder so that their money can work harder than them. And I think it's a great passion. And people who learn it faster, they'll do better. So yeah, so I'm very gung about, every time I hear somebody saying, Varun, इतने सारे डीमैट अकाउंट खुल गए यार, हमारे सारे डीमैट अकाउंट मिला के 5% of India है. Till it reaches 40%, I'm willing to have a conversation that the number of DMATs, whatever record high you saw, is just the start. We're coming out of the, out of the earth.
आई थिंक इट वाज बहुत सारा सप्रेस्ड डिमांड था, जो लैक ऑफ एक्सेस के कारण पड़ा हुआ था, विच इवेंचुअली एक्सेसिबिलिटी एंड obviously education by say companies like Paytm Money, like you yourself, financial literacy, financial education access के कारण बहुत सारा ना latent demand था जो निकल कर आया, I believe, right? And that's how, and but we are still far from calling ourselves कि हम हमारी एक Indian population है जो financially literate है, financially well educated है. अभी वो time I believe is still a decade from here,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
तो आई थिंक तो थोड़ा फाइनेंशियल इंडिपेंडेंस से बात करते हैं वरुण. आई थिंक एंड ना एक दिस अ वेरी फेमस क्वेश्चन अराउंड दैट हैज बीन आस्क्ड मल्टीपल टाइम्स बहुत जगह पे, बट इज देयर अ नंबर टू इट? जैसे कि फाइनेंशियल इंडिपेंडेंस की बात करो तो इज देयर अ नंबर टू इट? जैसे 1 करोड़ या 20 करोड़ या 10 लाख या 5 लाख, इज देयर अ पैटर्न टू इट और नंबर टू इट जिसपे यू विल से कि समवन कैन बी फाइनेंशियली इंडिपेंडेंट?
Very good question. I think, no, there's no number to it. Because I'll tell you, I have met some people, बहुत अमीर लोग हैं जिनके पास 10 करोड़ है, 50 करोड़ है अकाउंट में, लेकिन वो यार हैप्पी नहीं है. ठीक है, तो वो पता नहीं फाइनेंस इंडिपेंडेंस से क्या करोगे. इंडिपेंडेंस से हैप्पीनेस ही पाओगे. तो अगर आपके अकाउंट में 50 करोड़ है एंड यू आर नॉट हैप्पी, यू आर अ स्लेव टू योर आइडियाज, टू योर थॉट्स, टू वट एवर दैट यू आर अ स्लेव टू, इट्स नॉट फन. बिकॉज यू वन लाइफ गाइस, whoever is listening to this, एक ही लाइफ है, वो फुल करके जियो. मनी शुड नॉट बी अ गोल, हैप्पीनेस इज द ओनली गोल इन लाइफ. नाउ अनफॉर्चुनेटली द वे द वर्ल्ड हैज बिकम, इफ यू डोंट हैव मनी, आई वंस कैलकुलेटेड प्रितेश हाउ मच ऑफ माई लाइफ नीड्स मनी फॉर हैप्पीनेस. एक्चुअली कर सकते हो आप. बहुत ही सिंपल मैथ्स है ना. एक एक्सेल शीट खोलो, लिखो हैप्पीनेस का क्या मतलब है आज से 10 साल बाद. सो आई एम 43. आई रोट माई हैप्पीनेस डाउन एट 55. Okay, I said, okay, I need this kind of house. I want to travel 4 times a year somewhere. I want to be able to run an orphanage. I want to be able to give some people in my family some small money, blah blah blah. देखो, ये सब आपकी फाइनेंशियल नीड्स हैं. आप लिख सकते हो, बोल सकते हो यार मैं 60 का हो जाऊंगा और 25 साल में 2 साल हॉस्पिटल जाना पड़ेगा, उसका भी खर्चा आएगा. इंश्योरेंस वाले आपको इंश्योरेंस देंगे नहीं, क्लेम रिजेक्शन हो जाएगा. सो यू कैन लिटरली मेक एन एक्सेल शीट ऑफ ऑल दिस. इट टेक्स 1 day. It's a very pleasure day, and I urge everybody to do it, which is, let's say, at different age groups. If you're 25, please don't plan for 60. God knows will you be there at then that time or not. What will India be? What will world be? I personally don't want at 20 for somebody to plan for 65. But I at least plan my next 10 years very carefully. Okay, that's my personal goal. Some people love to plan their retirement when they're 20. It's brilliant. But in the quest for retirement, don't end up saving everything. So at 59, you're doing your first bungee jumping or skydiving. आप मेरा मतलब समझे. ठीक है, आप सिर्फ बंजी जंपिंग के नीचे ही जाओगे, ऊपर नहीं आओगे वापस. ठीक है, तो देखो कुछ चीज़ों का टाइम होता है, कुछ चीज़ों का क्या. अब एट 60 यू कांट ईट 10 गोलगप्पास अ डे और हैव अ 48-hour party and get drunk and slosh, right? I think there's a time for everything in life. So live your life first, and that should be the goal. So I plan my next 10 years, Pritesh, very well. I've been doing it since I was 20, and I've always tried to say, hey, at 30 what does my financials look like, मुझे क्या चाहिए उसके लिए. तो वो मैं निकाल लेता हूँ. मैं हमेशा लोगों से यही कहता हूँ, बहुत सिंपल है. एक्सेल शीट में 1 घंटा लगेगा, उससे ज़्यादा नहीं लगेगा. आप बनाओ कितना आपको रियल एस्टेट चाहिए, कितना आपको डेली एक्सपेंसेस चाहिए, कितना अपने फैमिली के लिए चाहिए, व्हाट इज इट दैट यू नीड फॉर चैरिटी और समथिंग दैट यू वांट टू डू व्हिच इज नॉट वर्क, एंड लास्टली हाउ मच डू यू नीड फॉर योर पर्सनल एंटरटेनमेंट. Put all this into an Excel sheet, it gives you a goal. then take a presumed return. I would take 12% just to be safe. Okay, take 12% return, work backwards to where you are, decide how much money you need. Very very simple Excel sheet. If you don't know how to do this, you can just Google it. It will be fine. All you have to do is CAGR. ठीक है, 12% आपको कंपाउंडेड एनुअल ग्रोथ रेट पे. मान लो मुझे 1 करोड़ चाहिए आज से 10 साल बाद, तो आज की रेट में कितना बचाना चालू करना चाहिए. ठीक है, कीप इट वेरी सिंपल. वो आप चालू करो, एंड दैट्स ऑल दैट वी नीड टू डू, राइट. सो आई वुड से देन, why? Because I met a friend of mine. For him, financial independence was a two-bedroom apartment, was a bike, was a lakh of rupees of inflow per month. And if he ever went to an hospital, he said, I need 5 lakh rupees because if it costs beyond anyway, I don't think I want to come back. Okay. So his life, his funda was very clear. यार उसका बेचारे का he is very clear. तो अभी उसकी life simple है. So he says, यार वरुण, मैं आपकी तरह ना CEO नहीं बनना चाहता हूँ. He's smarter than me. He says, Varun, I can't take the tension of running a large company. I want to enjoy my life. I want to work 6 hours a day. He's a fantastic designer, right? So he does design, and rest of the time he's painting and doing something and enjoying life. So देखो, आपकी अपनी choice है. I have as much respect for him as I have for myself or I have for Pritesh. But I think the important thing is put your Excel sheet, put your goal, decide how much monthly savings you need, and that's why I said income minus savings is equal to expense, right? And I just want to connect those dots, Pritesh.
I think Varun, I think a brilliant suggestion for all the people working out there today. खासकर मतलब वर्किंग प्रोफेशनल्स बात करे तो, बट व्हाट वुड बी योर से सजेशन टू जो कॉलेज जा रहे हैं बच्चे, कॉलेज गोइंग स्टूडेंट्स के लिए क्या सजेशंस हैं आपके?
आई यूज टू हसल इन कॉलेज. हसल करो यार. एक तो अच्छा, आप कॉलेज जा रहे हो और अगर आप ये सुन रहे हो तो प्लीज़ किसी के लिए काम मत करना. प्रीतेश की तरह स्टार्टअप करना, वाई कॉम्बिनेटर जाना. प्लीज़ 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 डू नॉट. I wish I was 20 today. Honestly, I would have never worked for anybody else in my whole life. Okay, I that's my, I am a complete fan of startups. I think it where India is today, next 10 years. अगर आप कॉलेज जा रहे हो, please do not get into doing beyond a certain point investments. Please do not work for day zero placements. Okay, please, please, please do not sell your dreams away for monthly salary. It is the worst thing that you can do for yourself and for everybody else. If you're going to college and you want to know what to do, I would set up my own startup. I would struggle. I would hustle. It takes time, but eventually the returns are fantastic. India is waiting for a million more startups. I'm sure even if 10 people are listening to this, I don't know, maybe 100 will or 1,000 will. Whoever listens to this, please set your own startup. But for me, yeah, if I'm a college going person, again, for me, I would start investing very small. Look, even a college going decent kid in India, I'm sure is able to save 500 bucks a month, right? And I think the fact is that has to start. The fact is, because you have to save 500, वो एक सेविंग का आपका फॉर्मूला में तो फिक्स हो गया, तो इनकम तो कहीं ना कहीं से आना पड़ेगा. इनकम के लिए हासिल करो, right? Evening jobs karo. I don't know why in India it's so bad to work in a McDonald's or in a restaurant or on Saturday, Sunday, instead of just hanging around and wasting time. Please go to a bar. It's more fun. Trust me, you'll learn how to make a nice cocktail. Plus, you'll be more cool in your real life, and maybe you'll meet other people, right? And I think it's just better, and you'll make money on the way. What's bad? Nothing. Right? We run a company, Pritesh, called Paytm Insider. I see all these young people hustling during big events like Sunburn, and I went once to see Lucky Ali, and there was this young girl hustling there. She was I think 18, and I asked her, I said, "What are you doing here?" Because I know her father very well. So she was like, "Hey, these guys decided to pay me $1,000 to listen to Lucky Ali, like 10 meters away." She said, "Why would I not do it?" So पैसे भी मिल रहे हैं लकी अली को सुनने के लिए. So she's there now. Ritviz is going to come, and I'm sure I'm going to see her again there. But hustle, save, and please do startups. That's the message for young college-going people. And learn, please, please, please study about personal finance.
Yep. I think that's a very out of the ordinary, out of the box suggestion जो आपने दिया वरुण. ठीक. Suggestion that I typically give out students is कि कॉलेज स्टूडेंट्स को कि मैं बोलता हूँ कि कॉलेज से ड्रॉप आउट कर जाओ. वेरी रैडिकल, बट आई थिंक कॉलेज ड्रॉप आउट इज अ बिगर ब्रांड टुडे. बिकॉज ऐसा नहीं कि कोई कॉलेज आज मन कर रहा है तो कॉलेज ड्रॉप आउट कर जाते हैं लोग पीपल हु ड्रॉप आउट ऑफ कॉलेज, आई जेन्युइनली बिलीव इन देम. देयर इज नेवर बीन अ कॉलेज ड्रॉप आउट रिज्यूमे दैट आई हैव नॉट इंटरव्यूड. आई बिलीव कि समवन हु इज ड्रॉपिंग आउट ऑफ कॉलेज कोई ना कोई पैशन है, कुछ ना कुछ दिमाग में कीड़ा है जिस कारण दे हैव एट सम पॉइंट डिसाइडेड कि आई वांट टू परस्यू बिगर गोल्स. बट आपने स्टार्टअप की बात करी वरुण, है ना? एंड स्टार्टअप्स का एक एग्जिट होता है. Probably every startup at some point starts to look at an exit, right? That exit could be acquisition, but a major goal for every startup is probably an IPO, right? पिछले 2-3 सालों में ना मल्टीपल इंडियन स्टार्टअप्स ने IPO किया, राइट? जोमेटो, नाइका, बहुत सारी कंपनीज ने IPO करा. बहुत बड़ा मोमेंट था इंडियन स्टार्टअप इकोसिस्टम के लिए एंड फाइनेंशियल मार्केट्स के लिए भी, राइट? बट एक बहुत मेजर चंक ऑफ देम कोलैप्स्ड. व्हाट डू यू थिंक वेंट रॉन्ग देयर?
Okay, first, I think for people who are young listening to this, here is my answer. Build a startup not for an IPO. Build a startup because you want to die with it, right? That's your first and last job, if you may. That's your first and last dream. As long as you have it, and I work for Paytm. Vijay Shekhar Sharma, fantastic person, admirable person who started 20 years back thinking India should be cashless. Today it is. If there's one man to thank in India for where we are, it is him. If there's one man to thank in India because you get your burgers on time, or your samosa and vada pav on time, or any food across India, anytime, rain, monsoon, mountains, is Dipinder Goyal in Zomato, right? And there's thousands of such examples of why we are who we are and where India is because somebody decided decades back, years back, months back to change the status quo and question it. Otherwise, India would have been where it is, like so many other poor developing countries. The reason we are top five economies of the world, in my mind, one of the biggest reasons is the startup ecosystem. So don't build a startup for an IPO, build a startup because you want to live it. Okay. Now, specific question, Pritesh said, hey, Varun, IPO में बहुत सारे results were not so good. Look, I want to ask this question very openly to everybody who invests in any equity. If you start your own business and you put money in it, when will you see return? I think the whole concept of an IPO is initial public offering. Somebody put their personal risk capital, time, energy for years together to build a business. सही है? आप उस बिजनेस का आपको शेयर दे रहे हैं which is a start from ground zero for you into that business. If you expect that they will put money and this is a casino where you'll hit the slot table and all of a sudden the money will come, that's not called IPO investing, that's called speculation. You might as well do futures and options where you speculate and you trade, right? So for me, IPO is the beginning of a company's journey, right? All these companies that have come, and I'm not saying all companies and all stocks will do well eventually. Nobody knows. Even good stocks of good companies will collapse. Great stocks of small companies which you think will not do well will do outstandingly well. So the stock market rewards the best, right? And when you invest in an IPO, hopefully you've not invested because of the mad rush and emotion and FOMO, because then that is stupidity. Nobody can blame anybody for stupidity except yourself, right? Look in the mirror, you'll find an answer about, hey, why did I do this? But if you genuinely did your research and you genuinely believed in it, I believe in long-term investing. And this is what I can tell you. With my mind, 10 years from today, India's economy as it goes, we started at 2.5 trillion, maybe a year and a half, 2 years back. Today we're reaching three, 3.5, and slowly we'll reach four, 4.5, five, 5.5, 10, 10.5, 20, 20.5. वो धीरे धीरे before you know, in front of your own eyes, if you're a guy receding hairline, right, you will see that किसको जोक समझ आया मेरे पास बाल कम है थोड़े से ऊपर इसको नहीं समझ आया आप समझ आ जाएगा right so sometimes I think Pritesh what happens is if you think about this for 10 years right and you ask yourself saying hey I invested in this company with a 10-year horizon and I really want people to ask themselves if India goes to a 10 trillion economy how many of these startups are going to be around creating 5 trillion of the 10 trillion and ask yourself are you part of that or not and I can tell you most of the people who are either critical or afraid are going to be regretting those decisions later right but I go back to saying do three checks very quickly read make up your mind हर चीज का risk appetite होता है कुछ चीजें बहुत रिस्की होती हैं एक टाइम में there was all this fuzz around blockchain okay has it become mainstream it has but we don't see it in some other way but it is not bitcoin right now there's a huge buzz around AI. Is it serious? In my mind, it is very serious and beautiful. 10 years back, everybody said, "Oh, this EV thing is a boom; it will not happen." Look around; everybody's driving electric cars and bikes now, even in a place like India, right? I was recently in Rishikesh for a company offsite. You know what shocked me was seeing an electric vehicle and two charging points somewhere deep in the mountains, right? So there is a massive transformation happening, and you can say, "Hey, I'm going to sit out of this," and it's perfectly fine. I would rather look, if you're investing in an IPO, you're investing in a decade long story. You have to believe in it and you have to understand it and do it. And if you don't believe, please don't do it. There's no harm, nobody's going to push anybody. Public offering and nahi lena mat, right? But if you do take it, I think have a long term horizon. Again, please have a risk appetite and have an asset allocation. Like I met this investor once who said, Varun, I don't invest in any IPO more than 2% of my total wealth. I love that guy. And he says in a year I don't do more than 5 IPOs all put together. I met this other customer who does 60 IPOs a year, puts 70% of his money in IPO, and wants to sell his IPO on day one of the business listing pay. That's not IPO investing, my dear friends. That is hard speculation. It's another investing strategy. Is it good or not? It's up to that investor. It is his or her risk appetite. But I don't consider that as IPO investing. IPO investing is you invest, stay for a long period, and enjoy the company's growth.
I think that is exactly what I also believe. I believe थोड़ा सा एक चीज और IPOs में recently जो जैसे मामा Zomato and all of these IPOs happened or did not happen जो भी थे, but यहाँ पे one more thing that happened here is that वो एक business cycle था. कोविड के टाइम पे सारे कंज्यूमर फेसिंग बिजनेसेस ना बहुत पीक करे एंड देन दे ट्राई टू गो इनटू आईपीओ, स्पेशली इंटरनेट कंज्यूमर फेसिंग बिजनेसेस, राइट. एंड देन देयर वाज वो कंज्यूमर फेसिंग बिजनेसेस का डाउन टर्न आया, सो अनफॉर्चुनेटली टाइमिंग थोड़ी गड़बड़ हो गई. The longer term horizon for all of these IPOs in the long term will do brilliantly, I believe. And I'm a very strong believer in the story of the Indian startup ecosystem. Hopefully, all of these do really well and reinforce the trust in the startup ecosystem. थोड़ा सा
Absolutely.
वीन हुआ है लास्ट कुछ 6-8 महीने तक, एक साल में तो एटलीस्ट फॉर श्योर.
I don't think so. I just want to, Pritesh, interrupt you a bit, and I think, look, I don't think there's any winning, right? If people thought that in 2 months technology will all of a sudden become everything in the world, I think they're misreading then the EV revolution, they're misreading what Apple is doing, they're misreading what Google is doing, what Paytm is doing, what Zomato is doing, Swiggy is doing, Uber, Airbnb, Booking. When it becomes, when a mobile phone became part of our life, I remember such vague conversations when the first smartphone was launched. I was a Nokia 3310 user, upgraded to BlackBerry. और मैं BlackBerry प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर से मिल रहा था, वो मुझे बताने की कोशिश कर रहा था कि दैट ही हैज़ द फास्टेस्ट कीबोर्ड इन द वर्ल्ड. Okay, 3 months later, everybody said keyboard क्यों चाहिए? Okay, so if you're driving a car today and you're willing to invest in a petrol car, I would ask the question saying, hey, 10 years from today, do you think that even petrol car company will exist? And the companies have started giving you answers, right? And I admire Tata for launching the Nexon car. It is beautiful, right? It is fantastic. So I'm more a Tata Motors fan than a Tesla fan, officially for the record, right? And that's my belief on the young Indian startup ecosystem. कि हम लोग सही कर रहे हैं, right? It will take time, like any other business, and that's what we should do. Have faith and do our research. And if it's not your risk appetite, from an investment perspective, hey, it's your money, keep it to yourself.
On a more casual note, I think Nexon launched a very cool revamped version very
Yeah.
lately, I think last month,
And
right? So I think since we're talking about एक market downturn की बात कर रहे हैं, तो वरुण एक last question है मेरा आपसे, which is a quick discussion around economy in general, right? The economy थोड़ा सा एक recessionary wave में, although stock markets are behaving differently, but economy एक recessionary wave में, startup ecosystem at least में feel हो रहा है daily basis पे. When and how do you see this economy reviving?
um, I believe we are going through small speed bumps.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, so in Germany, there are no, it's called Autobahn, there are no speed limits. People drive fast. 300, 200. And I believe, and I was having a very nice, interesting conversation with one of the biggest auto manufacturers owners. Okay, I won't tell you the name. Having a conversation, and he was saying, "Hey, Varun, and he made this comment, and I loved it. His best description of India was he said, Mr. Gadkari is building these beautiful roads. What I really love about Indian roads is you have this, धड़ 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 करके बीच में वो white lines होती हैं. Okay, they are called sleep breakers, not speed breakers. ठीक है? So he explained कि यार ये बहुत ही अच्छी चीज बना रहे हो आप लोग. तो मैंने कहा, "अरे, ये कैसा है?" मतलब, coming from a owner, CEO of one of the world's top three auto manufacturers with speed limits of unimaginable roads, talking about Indian roads being better. And he gave the analogy, and it's a very interesting story, and that's how I see the Indian economy. The way I see it is it's really cool for me. I think India is having it's the greatest decade. It started in 2020, again, unfortunately, due to a medical sad social event. But truth of life, I think 2020 to 2030 is India's decade. It's a great decade when our neighbors are restructuring. America is restructuring the way they lived for the last 60, 70 years. Europe is restructuring the way they lived for the last 100, 200 years. While everybody's restructuring, India has its chance. What I love is we've taken it and we're running with it. So look, there will be speed bumps. There will be very tough moments where we will have to transform. But मेरे लिए मैं बहुत simple हूँ. I think I'm betting all my life that and all my wealth, all my time, energy into that. I can bet that India will be top three economies. And amongst the top three economies, the 100 million Indians who decide to make that bet, okay, so India में 1.2 बिलियन है, मे बी 1.4 बिलियन हो जाएगा तब तक, जो 100 मिलियन लोग उस बेट को अपनी लाइफ की एक वो क्या क्या कहते हैं उसको पैशन बना लेंगे ना, those 100 million will be the best of the world. They'll be better than the 100 million Americans and the 100 million Chinese and 100 million Europeans. And I think that's the great story that's happening. And all of India will be richer. So for me, the only question to people listening is, are you part of the great India story or not? And I know if you're already listening to this and you held on till the end of the session, you are. So
If you enjoyed this, it would mean a lot to me if you subscribe and share your thoughts, reviews, and the guests you want. Join our group in the description and दोबारा मिलते हैं next discussion में.